Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting, hair-raising, fun-filled episode of Radiorama, where I show you, as the name implies, how to work on radios, as well as televisions and stereos and anything else that tends to run on vacuum tubes from the 1930s through about the 1960s or thereabouts. And today we have a Arvin mint green radio. Arvin model 55R26 in mint green. It is a 5-tube set. It is a very late model when it comes to tubes because we have this strange, I think these are the lower milliamp tubes, and they only made this type of tube, these types of tubes, for just a short while because not too long after this solid state started taking over. It does work. I tried it, and I'm not going to power it up again because I don't have any of these tubes in stock, and neither does our museum. I would have to order them online. So I'd rather not risk it, not knowing what the electrical situation is. It's kind of an oddball set because what they did for the grill cloth is they covered it in plastic. I guess so this stays nice and clean. But the speaker, it's got like holes here and on the bottom. I'm guessing it must come out like that way. That seems like a very strange thing, like blocking most of your speaker's ability to speak. It sounds okay though, so maybe the engineers weren't totally stupid. But what I'm going to do is open up the back and see what we got. I'm going to bet money it's probably a PC board, being as late as this is. And there's probably not much going on here. There's probably a surface-mounted electrolytic and a bunch of orange drops and ceramic caps and not much else. So this should be an easy restore, even though every time I say that, it winds up not being an easy restore. So I take that back. Maybe it'll be a hard one. I don't want to jinx myself. Well, fantastic. It looks like someone's been in here, and what they've done is they've used glue to glue the clock and the speaker into the case. That's okay, the case is pretty clean. But it is as expected. We have a PC board, very generic PC board, with the tubage, and we have a single electrolytic can here. And I don't see anything else. It's like we got a bunch of ceramic caps, which are fine. So we want to replace this electrolytic. It is original. I wouldn't trust anything of this vintage. I think I hear the ice cream truck coming. It's weird. It's overcast. Who wants ice cream? I guess I'm being a party pooper. Anyway, I'm going to pull this this guy out. Looks like there's one screw down here that holds the chassis in, and then we take this knob out. Not much holding this together. This is a very minimalist radio. Alright, what I ultimately did is I took pictures of where the wiring went, desoldered everything, and now we have the whole PC board out. It's very basic. That's fine. Anyway, there's one electrolytic capacitor here that needs to be replaced. There's two values in it, 30 microfarads and 50 microfarads. I'm just going to replace both with 47 microfarad caps. This is as simple as apple pie. You have this is the obvious, the common ground, and then these two are the positives. But what we need to do is remove this can and replace it with two modern equivalents. And what I'm going to do is use something called a solder sucker. I know it's kind of a stupid name, but we're going to melt and remove the solder from around those three leads so we can remove the old electrolytic and replace it with brand new electrolytics. Alright, so let's remove said solder away from the electrolytic using my old Metcal soldering station. Get good and hot. And I'm using the aforementioned solder sucker to remove the solder. What I also do to try to make it easier on myself is remove these little nibs. Oh, that's a little tougher. Let me get this guy. Oh, I ain't doing it either. Oh well. Maybe it's not meant to be. Anyway, we will continue removing solder from these leads. And You just kind of have to be patient because these PC boards are fragile. And so if you try to force these things out, you can crack the board and you can mess up the leads. So just take your time. Neighbors up the street got a new dog and that thing has been barking like crazy. That, and also for some reason one of my other neighbors got a rooster. I guess they're making eggs or something like that. But anyway, this is what you need to do. And you see, every once in a while you want to kind of wiggle this to see if it's come loose a little bit. And it's not ready yet. But you want to continue doing that, and eventually you'll be able to pull that out. Alright, well it came out as neat as a pin. I've never had an electrolytic can come out that nicely. I think because this is pretty late when it comes to PC boards, when it comes to tube stuff. Early on they had a problem where the heat from the tubes would essentially like degrade the PC material and the leads would come lifting off and everything. This is actually pretty solid. So what we need to do now is replace what was there, this, with these two guys. And if we look at the bottom of the PC board, this is the common negative. Here is lead 1 and lead 2 for the positives of the electrolytics. And all you have to do is just reference where is the ground, which is obviously that. Well, there's a lot of holes in the front here. It's not easy. Sometimes you have to flip it over to... Alright. There you go. So there's one. We'll do the other thing the same way. The other electrolytic. I'm going to bend your leads back here so it gets nice and snug. And then obviously this is the other positive. And with your electrolytics, your stripe here is always indicating your negative. Don't put them in backwards. That's my advice. Otherwise you'll get a pleasant surprise when they decide to blow up. Alright, so there we go. We got both these electrolytics installed. I'll try to get them as flat as I can because it looks nice and neat. And then we will solder these into position. Here's our negatives. Of course, obviously it's not behaving properly because I'm filming. Alright, there we go. That's the negatives. Positive. There we go. And now we just want to clip the excess leads. That's not necessary. There we go. Nice new shiny electrolytics. Well, I'm looking here at this cap. These are fine. I've seen these before. These are polystyrene. There's no paper film to leak. There's really not much going on here. You see, even like there's more modern safety, well, quote unquote modern for 60s, well, late 50s, early 60s era. When you have a plastic shaft for the volume pot, there's no way for the person using this, even if they were to pull the knob off, to get any sort of current through that. Another indicator of how late this is for tube era. Yeah, welcome to day 2, working on the Arvin. Didn't get much done yesterday because there really wasn't much to do other than replace these 2 little electrolytic capacitors. I believe this was made in 1964. We've got a stamped date here, 14/29/64. So this really is coming in towards the tail end of the tube era. I believe in 65, 66. By then most people had started to really switch over to transistors. And so this is the tail end here. Pretty new for a tube radio as far as what I work on. So now what we're going to do is add in the oh so famous audio input feature that I add to most of my little plastic sets. I've had a few people accuse me of butchering radios doing that. Well, here's the thing. What I can do, what I'm doing here can be reversed. It's not permanent. You can take it out if you don't like it. And the other reason I do it, and I've mentioned this several times on this channel, is there's not really that much to listen to on AM, at least not around here. But most of the AM dial in the US has kind of been taken over by news, talk, sports, which is fine. If you really enjoy listening to those things, then great. You can listen to your heart's content. But for most people, they want to listen to the kind of music that they want to hear, usually meaning they want to hear it played on demand through one of their mobile devices. And so what I'm going to do is add the sets. Just lost my train of thought. I'm going to use the sets amplifier section and run a signal in through the volume control. And that way we can run music through a isolation transformer. This is key because this is a floating hot chassis set, and we want to make sure that the user is never ever going to potentially get any kind of electrical current going through their input device. So this knocks that down. It's not complicated here. It's not rocket science. This is a transformer that has 120 volts coming in. Actually, it's 110 going in for the primary. Going out, the secondary is 12 volts. And what we're going to do is run a signal in reverse. Secondary, this is that side. We're going to have the audio running in. The primary goes to either end of the volume control, which is this thingy here. The volume control has 3 legs, top, bottom, and center. The bottom is negative. The top is the incoming radio signal. And on this one, it's a little easier to figure out because here we have the common negatives for the electrolytics. And then we have this leg, which is attached to that rail. That's our negative. And there's only one lead going to the top of the pot. It goes to this wafer here that has a bunch of little components in it. So what we want to do is add a feature which will enable us to temporarily disable AM radio signal. So we're going to make a little cut here and put a little wire that comes out the back for a little switch. And that will enable us to either turn the radio on or off and make sure that when the audio feature comes in, that you can have clean audio without radio interference. Likewise, if someone decides, well, actually, I do want to listen to AM radio, they can. They just turn the switch the other way, disconnect their audio device, radio is restored to full original functioning order. And like I said, if you're really concerned about it, it can be reversed. This has been really popular, and it gives new life to old radios that otherwise would probably just be shelf queens. So we do it for several reasons, but it does make the sets a little more utilitarian and useful. Houston, we have a problem. So I basically was preparing for installing this all back together again. Have my, where did it go? My isolation transformer all set up with my switch wire, my wire going to my ISO transformer. And from the get-go, the clock wasn't turning. And I thought, well, maybe it's because the mechanism's gunked up, so I tried to heat it up a little bit and use some oil. And then I tested it with my multimeter, and I'm getting zero continuity here. So that means either the coil that goes around the rotor here is open, or there's a connection inside of one of these guys that's come loose. I've not had good luck with this movement. In my opinion, probably the best electric clock movements are the Telecron units. They're very reliable and robust. I've not had very good luck with this style of electric clock at all. So it could be this is going to be a clock radio that has a non-functioning clock, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. This is not a common movement, or as common as a Telecron movement, so I just can't replace the drum. There's always something, I swear. Alright, well, I've got the audio running through. As a recap from yesterday, the clock doesn't work. It's got an open coil on it. I did confirm that, so it's not repairable, and I don't have any of those movements sitting around. But we got audio running through. Not bad. Anyway, What I'm going to do is glue this isolation transformer inside the cabinet. And I tied a knot in the end here so you can't pull it through the back. I'm also going to glue it to the back so you don't push it in. Here comes the delivery truck. But anyway, let's glue that back in there. Glue that isolation transformer in there. Okie dokie. It's pretty much done now. I'm going to guess that sound quality is not super ideal because the speaker's mostly blocked by plastic, but whatever. It is what it is. It's a strange design. This mint green color is kind of nice, so I think even though the clock does not work, that someone will probably like this. Who knows? Otherwise, the design is very plain. Again, interesting because it's the dying gasp of the tube era right before things went over to solid state, and that's where usually my interest starts to peter off. I've actually started recently been getting into some solid state stuff because it's a challenge. It's a little bit different than what I'm used to working on. I'm still pretty much a tube guy. I can't deny that I like things that glow. Anyhow, that's it for this kind of abbreviated episode of Radiorama. If you have any questions or comments, you can always leave them down in the comments section. And if you like what you see, press that like button. I pretty much make these episodes completely on the fly, and I know they're pretty rough. So for those of you that stick with me, I really appreciate it. I could do a much better job if I put a little more time into it, but this is just something for fun that I do. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Adios.